Hello, everyone.
We are so glad you're here.
Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, pull up a chair around the table here at the For This Moment podcast. My name is Laura Matthews.
And I'm Megan Sternhagen. We're two sisters and Regnum Christi women with a desire to share the beauty of the stories of God's kingdom in the lives of women throughout the world.
Our prayer is that this can be a space to inspire and encourage you in your own journey as you walk day by day, responding to the Father who has called you for this moment. Well, we have a very special episode today. We just finished the 10th National Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis, and our hearts are burning within us, just like the apostles on the road to Emmaus in the breaking of the bread. And so I feel a little bit like the apostles that just ran back from Emmaus to Jerusalem, and we just burst into the upper room, and we just want to share with everyone we've seen him. And so this episode of the podcast is just dedicated to sharing that experience. And instead of sitting around the table, I really want to invite you to the moment of the Congress. It was 50,000 plus people. So you can imagine just a lot of people, a lot of things going on. And so every day before we would go to the Regnum Christi booth, we would jump into the car that was in the parking lot outside the Lucas Oil Stadium to have our picnic lunch. And so we just invite you all to come on into the car, grab a cool drink because it's a warm summer day, but the air conditioning's on, and just join us in for this conversation as we share our hearts. I'm joined today by my consecrated sister, Carrie O'Connor, and my co-host, my faithful co-host, my sister Megan, is busy moving to Louisville, Kentucky, as she shared last week. So she couldn't be with us today, but we're hoping that she can also share in the graces as we share our experience of the beauty of God's goodness in the springtime of the church that we experienced this week in the Eucharistic Congress. So welcome, Carrie, to the podcast.
Thanks, Laura.
So Carrie and I have known each other for many years, but I'll let her kind of explain a little bit her backstory, and then we'll just dive into our experience here this past week and the gifts that we've received. So Carrie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Well, I am from Michigan, from West Michigan, and I've been consecrated for almost 21 years. My journey started through ECYD, through an ECYD camp in Northern Michigan, and I became consecrated after giving a year as a Regnum Christi missionary. And my time, all of my time being consecrated has included an apostolic focus in ECYD. That is definitely my great love in the mission is teens, adolescents, and in recent years, I've actually discovered that I really like middle childhood. I just feel like there's such fertile, fruitful, open hearts wanting to receive the seed of the Word of God, and it's just really beautiful and very gratifying despite some of the the extra dose of patience that's needed.
Challenges, yes.
I've worked in different places in the United States. I've been in California, in Arizona, and in Texas. And in 2015, I began an almost 10-year journey in Chile, in Santiago, Chile. I worked at our school called Everest School, and it was a wonderful experience. There were challenges because there's a lot of adapting to do at the beginning, but I just left there about a month ago, and it was very hard to say goodbye. It was a place that really became home, my home away from home.
So while I found out that Carrie was coming back this summer to the United States of America, I was looking for a consecrated sister to be at the Regnum Christi booth with me because our beautiful spiritual family was going to have a presence in the exposition hall with Carrie Rivard is our communications director, and she was looking for legionaries, consecrated men, consecrated women, lay people to just be a presence of the whole family at the convention. And we were struggling to find someone, and then the Holy Spirit inspired me and said, just reach out to Carrie O'Connor. She's coming back to the United States. Maybe she would have the time. and God is so good. So Carrie was able to drive down from her family visit in Michigan. And what was so neat is that I'm actually from Indianapolis. And so I was able to host her in my family home. And it was really like having a consecrated sister, but a blood sister sharing in mission. Although Carrie and I have lived together in different moments throughout our consecrated life, I've never worked in mission with her. So it was an exciting moment to share the beauty of our vocation and our love for Christ together. So that was a huge, huge grace. And I still am marveling at that God put that all together. And I love, Carrie, can you just share with them what you felt Jesus told you in your heart yesterday on your drive back to Michigan?
Yes. Well, it actually began from the very first moment that that I set foot in the stadium, and it began with adoration. It began with the Eucharistic procession, sort of the converging of the four different pilgrimage routes, and they brought in the Blessed Sacrament in procession, and I just like was surrounded by all these other Catholics and all of these the church in America, and I just felt this like overwhelming sensation of being welcomed home. I heard
Mm.
welcome home in my heart from the Lord, but also from the church. It was just the most beautiful experience. And that welcome home just kept resonating throughout the entire, I think it was 5 days of the Congress. And then yesterday, as I was driving back, kind of exhausted and just sort of recollecting, and I listened to some of the songs that had been played and everything. And again, just this like very powerful welcome home.
Because as we said, Carrie's been for almost 10 years. She's been down in South America and Chile, as they say in Spanish, Chile in English. And part of our consecration is that missionary being sent and being sent wherever the Lord wants us, and that availability of heart to go where we're sent. But then there's also, sometimes a sacrifice that comes with it, that we can't always stay connected like we would like to what's happening in our country of origin. And so we can sometimes feel like, wow, I missed a whole decade of what's been going on in a different place or what's been developing. So I think the Eucharistic Congress was a beautiful way to just get us just like a snap shot
Shot?
of Snapchat. You can tell we're tired, so let's just pour some grace on this conversation. But a snapshot of the church in America, and really for me, it was just yeah, like you said, welcome home, and I feel like it was an eternal welcome home. Like I felt like, whoa, this is how eternity is going to be. Um, Especially just all of us gathered in the stadium, uh, worshiping the Lord. There was a time when they had speakers up on the main stage and beautiful keynote speakers who were really exhorting us to go out and to go forth as Eucharistic missionaries. But I think a very powerful moment is when they would turn off all the lights in the stadium, and they would just have one spotlight on the priest that was carrying the Blessed Sacrament into the stadium. And they had a beautifully prepared altar in the middle, and all the spotlights would converge upon the altar, and everything else was just black. And it just resonated in my heart, just like this is what we're going to be doing for all eternity, is worshiping him. And there was a moment where, especially in the giant Eucharistic procession that we had with 60,000 plus people through the downtown of Indianapolis, the biggest Eucharistic procession in decades here in the United States. They put the Blessed Sacrament up on the war memorial, and he was up there in all his glory. And I just loved the voice of the priest that was leading us in guided prayer. And he said, Jesus, we did this for you. We did this for you. All of the glory, all of the praise, all of the organization, all of the people, all of the gathering, all of the singing is for our King, for Christ the King. And it just really I want to have it as like a memorial stone in my life, like a marking moment of my whole life is for you. All of this glory goes to you, this celebrating, it was all focused on him. He was the main focus. And I loved, even all the speakers throughout we had Father Mike Schmitz, we had Bishop Barron, Jonathan Rumi, Sister Miriam James Heidland, Sister Josephine Garrett, Mother Olga, Monsignor Shea, lots of beautiful given people to the Lord. But anytime they received a lot of applause or standing ovation, they would make the sign of the cross, point their fingers to heaven, and just exit the stage as fast as they could. It was all for him, all for his glory. And I've never been at something that was so centered upon the Eucharist, and that he is here with us, and what a gift that is. So just wanted to echo what you said, Carrie, like that welcome home. For me, it was like, this is home. This is what's going to be all of eternity. And for a moment, the veil was like opened, and it could, there's that, I love that song, Let All Mortal Flesh Keep Silence. And there's a part where it says like the realm of endless days. And it was almost like we could see through into the realm of endless days and unending light with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Laura, I love what you're sharing. And I want to add, it reminds me of something that you all can imagine. We had to drive 40 minutes in the morning and 40 minutes at night to and from Laura's family's house. And I felt like I was just living in this podcast, because Laura and her mom, and then her dad when he was with us, we just were constantly, as we like to say, rehashing, just reliving and commenting on everything that had happened during the day, and what had impressed us, and what we had loved, and what had inspired us. And one of the things that on the last day as we were driving home that really struck me was just the fact that despite the fact that maybe some people were drawn to participate because such and such a speaker was going to be there, or I don't know, a band that they really like, Matt Maher was there, or Jonathan Rumi from The Chosen. The real protagonist that was just like constantly on center stage, and actually there was a specific little stage for the adoration, which happened every single night, and it wasn't at the front of the crowd, it was actually in the middle. It was Jesus himself in the Eucharist. And my brother's family, my brother and sister-in-law, were able to bring their young kids for pretty much every day. They were able to participate. And one of my nephews said to me, "Hey, Aunt Carrie, is the Pope going to be here?" And I said to him, "Well, no, he's not. The real focus here is Jesus." And I kept thinking afterwards and thought, how amazing, the only recurring, constantly on repeat, like focal point was Jesus, because different priests or cardinals or the apostolic nuncio or the oh goodness, what's it called when he's I think it's the nuncio to the United States, yeah, who was there yesterday, no, the first day. Well, there were important people up there constantly, but none of them were the focal point, and all of them were pointing back to Jesus in the center, and all of them seemed to, they probably compared a few notes before talking, but really the Holy Spirit was the one guiding the message to just constantly be focusing back on Jesus and letting him be the one to really preside over it. And I loved that.
Yeah, it was for me. I had the grace to go to Lisbon last year to World Youth Day, and I obviously am still just overwhelmed by the graces of that opportunity. But it's true that the big thing is to see the Vicar of Christ on earth, right? To see the Pope, and just the hype about, trying to catch a glimpse of him. And, it's really his encounter with the young people. But you're right, Carrie, that there was no like hype around a human person at any moment. It was really, as soon as the crowd would applaud for a person, they would just perfectly and beautifully center it back on Jesus. And I found that just very moving. And I also was so moved as well. Somebody asked me, like, was this similar to the feelings that you have on World Youth Day, or the graces that you have on World Youth Day? And I said, yes, like the magnitude, there's even more people at World Youth Day, right? But what I just really was impressed by was the face of the universal church present. You had lots of moms holding their babies, dads pushing strollers, young couples, youth, little kids running around, old people, older couples, grandmas and grandpas,
Wheelchairs. And
wheelchairs,
then how about
walkers.
all of the priests and bishops and religious sisters and deacons? I saw a whole bunch of deacons because everyone was wearing a name tag the whole time. That was you had your credentials that allowed you to get in and out of places. And it had the name of the person and the place of origin. And so, you kind of like, I'd see people like looking at your face and then looking at your credential and looking at your face. Like we were constantly scanning the the
Yes.
area to see who was there, and the amount of just, yeah, like you say, the whole church was represented, and there were Hispanics, there were Asians, there were Africans, a beautiful group of African women who were wearing this like traditional outfit, and they would go around singing and dancing, and like everybody wanted to get their picture taken with them and take a video of them.
So joyful, so joyful. Yeah,
Yes.
it was really for me, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, this is the whole church. It was just
Mhm.
the face of Jesus in so many different ways, and religious orders of every kind of habit, every kind of, spirituality was present. And
Mhm.
for us to be there as a spiritual family, there in the heart of the church, as one more face of Jesus serving our world, was so, so incredibly beautiful. And I'm just so
Mhm.
grateful that our booth
Mhm.
was there in the middle of the vocations. So in the exposition hall, they had ministries. There was a ministry section, there was a marketplace section for all of our beautiful stores that are, helping to bring Catholic merchandise to the world and to evangelize through merchandise, right? And there was an education section, which shout out to Divine Mercy University. And actually, Cheshire, the seminary of the Legionaries of Christ, was also in the education section. And then our booth of our spiritual family, Regnum Christi, was in the vocation section among all these beautiful religious nuns everywhere in every color. And I just love to be able to be there one more joyfully present and realizing all the creativity of the Holy Spirit honestly blew me away,
Yeah.
because for every kind of person there is a way to get to heaven and a spirituality and a charism. And I think it was really neat for us as a Regnum Christi family to be there as a whole family. I think that's where we really shine, is when all the vocations are present and we can, we have our beautiful banner of all the different vocations, but then to actually physically they be there present with our lay men
Mhm.
and women and our legionary
Mhm.
brothers and the consecrated branches. I think it was just really, I think people were intrigued, honestly, by,
Mhm.
wait, wow, all these vocations in one spiritual family.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah,
neat.
and our booth was a happening place. I mean, people were coming in and out of there constantly. The exhibit hall was so full. There was kind of limited in the time that people could go because the mornings were really set aside for participating in the impact conferences, but impact sessions. But whenever it was open, I mean, there was just a constant flow of people, whether it be RC members who had come to the Congress to benefit from it and to just be a part of this great undertaking, or people that were just going down the aisles and would see this. And actually, what was really cool was the Indianapolis RC members built a beautiful wooden cross that was standing up at the back of our booth. And what our job was, those of us who were at the booth, was to invite people to write down their prayer intentions and let them actually hammer them onto the cross. And it was really cool because that was such a neat draw and invitation for people to approach. And whether or not they were interested in hearing or knowing more about Regnum Christi, they were interested in having their prayer intentions, received and prayed for. And we didn't just leave them on the cross. In fact, at the end of every day, the cross was so full that we had to take all the papers off and hand them out to the different RC members and to the seminarians and to the candidates who are just starting this summer. And everybody would walk away with their wad of intentions to really specifically pray for those people. So I think it was a really neat expression too of, we're known for our apostolic action, but we are also contemplative in our spirit. And it was a really neat way of demonstrating that, just in just the way of being.
Yeah. And
I
that
love
that
that.
is very recognizable of our mission too, that we do that. We go on missions in inner cities, or and we bring the mission cross with us. So even young people that had done missions with us saw the mission cross, and it was something that was like, oh yeah, I've done that before with Regnum Christi, and they
Mm-hmm.
knew what that was
Mm-hmm.
about. But it was really neat because not always do we get to hear the answered prayers, but because it was a Congress spread out over 5 days, we
Yeah.
were able to hear some miraculous answers to prayer. I had a couple from Florida come up and say, we need to write more intentions. It was on day 2,
Mm-hmm.
because they said that they had written the day before an intention for a family member who has not been able to get chemo treatment for prostate cancer that they have. And within an hour of writing the intention on our cross, they got a call saying that this family member had received chemo and was going to get 6 months free. So they were just so moved by just that experience, and of course wanted to write a lot more intentions. But it was so neat
Yeah.
too, because as we were at the booth, we were able to say, God is here. He is working, and the
Mm-hmm.
faith is palpable in
Mm-hmm.
this room. And just I would ask people, do you have any prayer intentions? And sometimes tears would come to their eyes, or they would be, you just see every single person is carrying something, carrying someone, carrying a situation that
Mm-hmm.
they just want to lay at the foot of the cross. And
Mm-hmm.
um, one time too, a lady was a little hesitant to write an intention. It was something very personal. And I didn't realize that. And so she's writing, and then she comes up and I said, I can help you nail it. And I said, there's only space here at the very bottom at the foot of the cross. And she said, I asked Jesus, okay, this is a very personal intention, but I only want to nail it at the foot of the cross. And she said, and there you
Mm.
were saying, we need to nail it at the very
Wow.
bottom foot of the cross. So
That's the place.
it was
Wow.
just neat to see how personal the Lord was
Wow.
with just all those tiny details. And then afterwards, like Carrie, you just said, to be able to pray very specifically. And in adoration, we'd have adoration every single night back at Lucas Oil Stadium, and I would carry all of those encounters and people again to the foot of the cross. It was very much, I felt, our charism bite size in our charism, because it was encountering people, revealing Christ's love for them, asking them if they had any prayers or how we could serve them and love them, and then
Mhm.
bringing them to the feet of Jesus in the Eucharist and doing that over and over again. Um, it was, I think, just very telling and beautiful. And then that same missionary cross, the candidates, so the seminarians from Cheshire, drove down 14 hours to
Mhm.
be present at the Eucharistic Congress. And the candidates and their formators walked with the Regnum Christi family in the Eucharistic procession and carried that same missionary cross. So I think it was very symbolic and very charismatic, the missionary cross and the gathering of prayers. So
Mhm.
that was a powerful
Yeah.
experience to be there at the booth. And you had a lot of other powerful experiences at the booth. If you'd like to share a little bit of that, please.
I got teased a little bit at the booth because being away for almost 10 years, this was kind of like my debut back in RC and into life in the States. And I had no idea. I was expecting to see some people that I hadn't seen in a long time, but I had no idea that others were going to be there and I would get to see them and reunite. And so it was funny because my commitment was to help at the booth and to, be a welcoming face and everything. But I ended up just spending a lot of time giving hugs and catching up with people that I hadn't seen. And it was amazing because I met up with people that I knew even before I was in Regnum Christi. The parents of a really good friend of mine from when I was a little girl. Um, and then from all of the different places that I've been on mission, from former consecrated, with former Regnum Christi missionaries, it was just a constant flow because, like I said, being Regnum Christi is present in so many places, and so many people have passed through the RC life, or whether it be a retreat or a camp or something that was at their parish or whatever at some point. And so that was just beautiful. I mean, and it wasn't just in my case. I think everybody, found that this was a point of encounter with so many dear friends from our journey that we've walked together. But yeah, you and I, Laura, we were in tears by the end of the Saturday because we received 4 different religious sisters at the booth during the time that we were standing there. who each independently came to tell us thank you. Thank you to Regnum Christi for where they're at today. And the first one who came was definitely the one who impressed me the most, because she is from Queen Creek, Arizona, which is on the way outskirts of Phoenix. And in the years that I was working in Phoenix, the legionaries were the pastors of a parish there that the bishop had entrusted to them. And this young girl had never seen a religious or a consecrated woman in her life. And somehow our example, in the few times that we actually would go to the parish and do different activities and whatever, she was so inspired and said, I want to give my life to Jesus like they do. And she said to me, you were the only people that I had ever seen that were living that life. And I, pondered that for years until I finally met my first religious sister and I joined. And I'm going to be making my final vows in 1 month. And just a few weeks ago, I was thinking, I really want to find Carrie O'Connor so that I can tell her how thankful I am to the
Oh,
Consecrated for what they did. And I mean, the two of us just were crying like tears of amazement as she was telling this to me. And I was like remembering back to that particular year and that particular time and just being amazed at how like God blesses our self-giving and our faithfulness to his call, even if we're not even meaning to do good, we're just living our life. Um, Another young sister who is with the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal. She wanted to come and thank the Consecrated because it was through ECYD that she learned how to pray and how to really have like a very personal relationship with Jesus. And that's something that she learned through ECYD. And she says now, like in my ministry and my apostolate that I do in New York City, that's what I do. I teach kids to pray just like ECYD taught me to pray. Um, then do you want to tell about the other two, Laura, that were
oh
just
yeah.
amazing
So
stuff?
I had, well, first I just want to say I think it's so beautiful, Carrie, that all of the four that come up, and I'll share the last two, were ECYD age. So they were from the youth age that we serve, and that's where they met Jesus. That's where they heard the call. That's where they started to have a relationship with him. And Carrie
Mhm,
has come back to the United States to continue to take up that mission and to continue to plant seeds. So, we don't always get to see the fruits of
mhm,
our labor of love, but it was like along with that welcome home, God wanted us
mhm,
to also see, like, you have no idea what that little, active self-giving, or that little talk you gave,
mhm.
or that smile, or that spiritual direction, what seeds he is allowing to be sown in their hearts. And
Yeah,
so we had a
absolutely.
Nashville Dominican come up, very moved actually, and she just
Yeah.
didn't know we were consecrated, but she just said, I want to come up and say thank you to Regnum Christi here at the booth, because we lived out in the Pacific Northwest, kind of disconnected from any kind of community. And I didn't have a prayer. My family didn't have a prayer relationship with Jesus at all, didn't know how to pray. And she said it was thanks to a Regnum Christi woman reaching out to my mom and helping my mom to find fellowship and faith and to walk with her and accompany her, that my mom learned to pray. My dad learned to pray. And they brought us to Eucharistic hours. And she said, I still remember the little Regnum Christi prayer book and how it felt, and the thin pages. And she said I would read the litanies to Mary after the rosary, and just thought it was so beautiful. And she said it was in those Regnum Christi Eucharistic hours that I received my call. And she was teary eyed, just saying, "Thank
Mhm,
you. You taught my family to pray." And I said to her, how beautiful, because that's exactly our charism, is to help people to encounter Jesus. And she said, yes. And when they encounter Jesus, they can hear the call. And I was able to hear the call of being a religious sister. And she said, I'm going to make my final vows on August 10th. So everyone can pray for Sister Rafaela. And
mhm,
I said, this is the hundredfold, literally. And
mhm,
then and then the last one was a student I had from the Highlands School, and she came up to me. She's changed her name as a religious sister, and she just came up. And when I was teaching at the Highlands School in Dallas, they would call me Miss Laura. even though some of my students now that they're college girls or older, I tell them, you don't need to say Miss Laura, you can just say Laura. But they said, no, we have to say Miss Laura forever. So this precious little religious nun came up to me and said, hi, Miss Laura. And it was just the way she said it and her little face. And of course, I was just like, oh my gosh. So she said, thank you for being my teacher and for showing just such a joyful, self-giving love for Jesus and consecration that inspired me to follow my call. So I was just so grateful to God for those. We don't need to receive those, those experiences, but I felt like he wanted to shower those down upon us as a way to confirm that through our charism of helping people meet Jesus, they're finding his love and finding his call upon their life and their mission, and going out to continue to serve in whatever way he is calling them. So that was just so beautiful. And I just loved, not only the 4 religious sisters that Carrie and I encountered, but so many people came to the booth, not because of a video that they had seen or, some kind of promotion that they had saw or something. It was, they wanted to tell us who they knew. I know this consecrated. I know this missionary. I know this lay person. I know this ECYD member. I know this Regnum Christi missionary corps. It was really cool. And they wanted me to write down their names and to reach out to that person. She came to my university or she came to my school or he was in my camp or this person really touched me. And so I thought that was really neat because it was, again, that personal relationship and going out to walk with people. And actually a lot of the Congress was a call for people just to go out, and they said, just walk with one. Go walk with one person that might be away from the church or doubting the faith or not going to mass. And they said, if 60,000 people go and walk with one, that's going to be the power of revival. And I thought that just fits so much with our mission, because it's about that personal encounter and just walking with the one. As we recently wrote in our communique from the Regnum Christi General Convention, it's being the one to go with Jesus, after the 99, and just being with him to go out and meet people in the concrete realities of their lives. So I thought that was really neat too, how people would come to the booth and specifically want to tell us who they knew and to make that connection. So no, it was
amazing.
Yeah,
and really definitely a testimony that Regnum Christi is present in many places in the world and in the United States, and is doing good in the way that the Lord is, putting the opportunities in the path of each person. And I think, it's been a really long time since we've had a youth and family encounter, a YFE, as we called it here in the States. But there's something really special about being part of this universal, American church. The USCCB was the great impulsor of this event, and like to be just one more part of the body of Christ that is trying to do the good where we're at. It was beautiful. I loved it. And actually one of the things that we talked about too in our morning and evening podcast sessions in the car was just like, wow, how there's room in the church for everybody and for everything. And I think that was something that they were very intentional about, in that like I said, there were a lot of different speakers from a lot of different backgrounds with a lot of different focuses, and people could choose what was of interest to them. Every day the Mass was celebrated at least 6 times, if I'm not mistaken, because it was simultaneously 3 different options in the morning and in the afternoon. There were some of our different rites were included. There's even the traditional Latin Mass was offered at the parish that it's celebrated at here in this diocese. The languages, the styles of music, the focus of the preaching, like everything was just so, like, it was so universal. Everything was considered, every need or every interest or every preference was taken into consideration, from the gospel choir to the Gregorian chant. It was all there, and somehow it just harmonized. Like, I just experienced so much harmony. And I think that our being there was just as important as the presence of some of the other religious congregations that were there. You know, like everyone's contribution to the good of the church is necessary, and it's beautiful, and it builds up. And so that was really a blessing to be part of that as well.
Yeah, and it was like I think you could I think it was encouraging, like you mentioned, Carrie, sometimes we only hear the negative things, especially if we're outside of the country. You can
Hmm.
just hear there's division or there's you know, just you hear hard things that might be happening in the American church. So to see that we are, yes, there is division just like there is everywhere, but there is so much hope. There's so much unity.
Hmm.
There's so much life. And to see a unified church and a unified
Hmm.
message with all the harmonies, like you said, of different ways of living that was just very encouraging. And for me, it was, yeah, this is the holy one universal Catholic Church here,
Yes.
and that is what is so encouraging and beautiful. And
Yeah.
I was really moved by we have a chat of Regnum Christi members that were present. So shout out to all Regnum Christi members that made an effort to come. And I was so grateful to see so many of you at the opening picnic that we had before the Congress at the Indianapolis Regnum Christi Family Center. Thank you, Regnum Christi members of Indianapolis, for your beautiful hospitality effort and sacrifice
Yes. Unbelievable.
to make that happen. We just felt like it was just a big family reunion, and we had mass with over 300 people there before the Congress. So it was beautiful, and we're sharing testimonies right now in the chat. And one legionary said, I'm part of the John Paul II generation, and he would share that there's going to be a new springtime in the church. And he said, honestly, I thought I would never see it.
Hmm.
But in this Congress, I've seen it. And, for example, we had 2,000 priests over 2,000 priests entered the stadium for Mass yesterday. And the procession, the entrance song was 30 minutes long. Um, of just
Yeah.
beautiful, self-giving, testimonies of a life given to God to serve. And
Hmm.
he said, it must be like what the Israelites felt when they saw the Holy Land. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah,
The promised
there's
land. Yeah,
it's
beautiful.
just laden with promise. And, it's a time that's, there is so much hope. There is so much reason to
Hmm.
rejoice. And it was interesting. My dad was commenting that, maybe 25, 30 years ago at these big conferences, nothing as big, but, those big conferences, it was more focused on apologetics and knowing the faith. And, to a generation that didn't know the faith or didn't have, the same formation. And now the focus is go forth, be witnesses, be Eucharistic
Hmm.
missionaries, is what they called us to be, to spread the gospel by our testimony of life and our joy. And they
Hmm.
said, just like the Eucharist, in the Eucharist, the priest says, "This is my body," that our response should also be, "This is my body. This is my body
Hmm.
given up for
Yeah.
you, the world." And
Yeah.
it was a challenge, right? And it wasn't a feel good conference. It was a challenging
No.
exhortation. Every single
Yes.
speaker exhorted us, go forth, spread that light.
Hmm.
That's why we're doing this podcast a day after when we're exhausted and our brains are mush,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
we feel so convicted.
Yes. Yes.
And
Well, and
we have
I'd like
one
to
minute
add,
left
Laura.
here. So
Okay. Well, I just want to add too that there was a definite call to conversion and repentance, both on a personal and on a group level as a church. In order to, before going forth, we need to look deep inside and see where we're perhaps not building up the body of Christ and not reflecting that, and then from there to go forth, which is incredible. I think it was well received in the big stadium.
So before we start wrapping up, Carrie, can you share with us what your nephew Michael shared with you about the Regnum Christi family picnic and Mass before the Eucharistic Congress?
Yes. Yes. So he actually said it to his mom. They drove up from Louisville and they participated in the very beautiful mass with 200 people under a tent at the family center. And then there was a nice luncheon afterwards. And they got back in the car to drive downtown to come to the convention center and all. And he goes, "Wait, Mom, where are we going?" And she said, "To the Eucharistic Congress, Michael." And he goes, "Oh, I thought that was the Eucharistic Congress." He felt like I mean, he had his little camera. It was his first communion present. He had his camera. He was recording. He had never seen so many priests in his life. I think there were maybe 40 priests. He was so amazed. And then little did he know that the Eucharistic Congress had a whole lot more people at it than just our humble, beautiful family picnic. And that same night, the first night when we were in the adoration, he was kneeling next to me and he turned to me and said, "Aunt Carrie, just think, all these people came to see Jesus." And I was like, "Yeah, Michael, you got it. That's pretty amazing." I mean, a whole entire football stadium full of people who just came to see Jesus.
It was
And that's
all
really
for
what it
him.
was.
It was
Yes,
all for him.
yes,
We did this for you, Jesus. So,
yes, yes.
um, well, as this podcast is called For This Moment, Carrie, just want to ask you as we finish up here, how do you feel like, that welcome home you received at the Eucharistic Congress has helped you as you look forward to your new mission?
Hmm. Well, I'm a Midwest girl and I will be working in Cincinnati, which is close to Michigan. It's not quite the same, but it's close. And from the very moment that I was presented with that idea of going to the Midwest, I just felt like that's my spot to be right now. My years in Chile were beautiful. They were time of a lot of growth, a lot of learning, a lot of maturing. And the fact that I was able to be there for a long time allowed me to see a lot of fruits of the self-giving of my own and of many other people. And I always had a desire in my heart to evangelize my own people, like to be with my own people. I loved being outside of my culture. I think it was very, very, very good. But I think that this is a time that God's giving me as a gift to be able to be close to home
Hmm.
and to be with my people. And I feel like the Eucharistic Congress was just that, like a welcome back to the church today. However things were 10 years ago and whatever I was expecting, had an experience, not just someone told me about it, but I had a
Hmm.
true experience of what the landscape is in the church today and that I get to be a part of it. And if I've learned anything in these last 10 years, you don't have to um, be the most eloquent. You don't have to know the most. You don't have to be the most fun or, have all the ideas. I mean, I'm not at the same stage in my life as I was 10 years ago when I left. And I still feel called to work in ECYD. And I really, really, really believe in it. So I think that, yeah, this is the moment. This is the moment that God has called me to be here. And I'm very excited to begin.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie, for saying yes and renewing that yes and really embodying that being a Eucharistic missionary that they called us to be. And I hope all of you that are listening will leave in the show notes a link to all of the keynote speakers. And, I'm sure you all know you can follow on EWTN or see on EWTN the beauty of all of the processions, the Mass, the Eucharistic adorations, and just feel a little bit of the joy and the miracle and the transformative experience that we all had here in Indianapolis. And the beauty is that we all have that in our churches and for consecrated and legionaries, we have that in our home. We have the presence of the one who loves us. We have Jesus amongst us, his body, blood, soul, and divinity. So it's just been a great grace for us to share a little bit of our experience and to contemplate together the goodness of God and his glory and to now go out and share the springtime message. Yes, we're in a minority as a church now in a world that is ever increasingly hostile to Catholicism, to Christianity. But just like the apostles were sent out of the upper room, we have also received the Spirit, and we want to go forth as His missionary apostles and to be sent like Jesus to share the message of salvation. And because we receive Him body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist, we have the power and the strength and the grace to do that. So, Christ our
Amen.
King, thy kingdom
Thy
come.
kingdom come.
Amen. We love you all. God bless
Awesome.
you.
God bless. Thank you, Laura.